transpired in West Asia and the Middle East. India and Israel, of course, have signed several memorandums of understanding. The Prime Minister is just wrapping up his visit. There is an important step as far as strategic and economic partnership between the two countries is concerned. In fact, that was elevated during this particular visit of the Prime Minister. Several agreements were signed after discussions between the two Prime Ministers, Netanyahu and Prime Minister Modi. The focus was on trade cooperation. There is likely to be an FTA soon, is what the Prime Minister also hinted at. There are 16 pacts that were inked today. They were from different aspects: innovation, geophysical exploration. Agriculture was one of the key aspects that was looked into as well. Innovation Center for Agriculture is soon going to be set up. Maritime heritage, fisheries, aquaculture is something that the two sides discussed, that the two sides came to an agreement on. The most focal point was artificial intelligence. Advancing education through AI has now been pledged from both sides. There is going to be transfer of technology too that we are looking at. MOUs on education, commerce, on defense cooperation, on technology sharing, on joint research especially. That has also been signed now. That is going to be extremely crucial because India does rely to an extent on Israeli technology, on Israeli defense systems. That is something that partnership has been taken forward as well. Cultural exchange, of course, continues on both sides. An MOU has been signed under which people-to-people ties will also now be enhanced. Cybersecurity is something that was discussed. A cyber center for excellence will be established because we do live in a digital age. The kind of wars that we fight are not just on land, sea and air. They are in the digital cyberspace as well. So that's something that the two countries have also discussed. Importantly, India's UPI is also now going to be seen in Israel. There was a memorandum of understanding that was signed between the two sides linking UPI systems between India and Israel, and that has been inked today. Well, let's open this up. Sushant Sareen, Senior Fellow of the ORF, is with us. Anand Ranganathan continues to be with us as well. Sushant, how significant was this visit, would you say, especially in the light of what has transpired during the bilateral, the kind of MOUs that have been signed? I mean, the thrust really was on defense technology and everyone was focusing on that. Do you think what has come out of it is on par with expectations, or could there have been more?
Look, I imagine that there would have been a number of deals, defense deals, which would have been struck, just that they haven't been announced, at least from what I've read in the takeaways on the MEA website. None of the defense deals have been really announced right now, but I'm sure a lot of those deals have been worked out, and we'll probably get to know in the course of time. But there are some important achievements of this particular visit. One, I think at the political and diplomatic level, that old hesitation, embarrassment, that no, we need to do this kind of monkey balancing, that's gone. I think it's a very clear statement that Israel is a very important partner, and we don't have to be apologetic or shy about engaging Israel. And yes, we will do it. We will do it openly. That does not mean that our policy on Palestine has necessarily changed, whatever that policy might be, or that our engagement with the rest of the Arab world or the Islamic world for that matter, except a couple of dishonorable exceptions like Pakistan and Turkey, that we will not engage them. We'll certainly engage them. They are very valuable partners for us. So that was the second takeaway. The third was that, very often we on television channels and in our writings, we focus on defense and the big strategic issues. But I think one thing which we've seen in the last 11 years of Prime Minister Modi is that he tends to focus on some of the smaller things which are very, very critical. So, for example, there is a lot of talk on the trade issues, which we are now going to be negotiating with Israel. There is focus on agriculture. There is focus on technological innovation and those particular fields. There is focus on extending UPI, for that matter, to Israel, which will be very useful for a lot of Indian workers who are now being contracted in Israel, by Israelis. So a lot of the work that was being farmed out to people from Gaza and West Bank and other places, and a lot of that work is going to go to Indians who will go also get skilled in the process and eventually come back, and it'll help India in a lot of ways. And for those people, if you have the UPI facility, I think that really works very well. And if tomorrow, the tourism industry between India and Israel is a little expensive, no doubt. But if the tourism thing picks up with Israel, then UPI certainly works wonders for Indian tourists. So when you look at the whole gamut of agreements that have been signed, I think it's a pretty impressive list of things that have been achieved.
Anand Ranganathan, any hits and misses as per you as far as this visit goes? I mean, like Sushant Sareen was also pointing out, there was a certain position that India had taken. Historically, India is believed to have been on the Palestinian side. But in the last 12 years, we've seen the kind of moves that the Modi government has made. Does it now seem like India is firmly in Israel's corner, especially at a time when the world is looking at what is transpiring, sort of painting Israel as say, the war criminal, as a country that nobody wants to associate with?
You framed the question very nicely. You said, have there been any hits and misses? I'll say it's been hits upon hits upon hits and a couple of misses, but those misses are on our side. Now, let me explain what I mean. First of all, you absolutely rightly said, I don't know, I don't care what the world says, what the biased United Nations or the International Criminal Court or whatever they say. 1.15 billion morally upright and conscientious Indians stand with Israel, and they always will stand with Israel. Israel was the victim of genocide that was perpetrated on men, women, and children, where babies were microwaved on October 2023. The fact of the matter is, when Israel retaliated, then all hell broke loose, because in that retaliation there was a lot of unfortunate incidents that killed a lot of people who were being used as human shields by terrorist organizations like Hamas, and then came Hezbollah. So Israel is the victim out here, just like India is the victim and Pakistan is the perpetrator. It's the same story of neighbors being enemies. Now let me come to the other part. I think it is great. As I said, this has been a roaring success of a visit. The misses are on our part because, yes, by all means, let us have a collaboration on a lot of subjects: science, technology, AI, agriculture. Yes. What are the misses? Have we done the reforms that we need for Israel to come in and help us in agriculture, or we to help Israel? I'm afraid not. Those farm laws that Prime Minister Modi promulgated 5 years ago would have catapulted us to a middle income economy within a decade and a half. Unfortunately, now we've forgotten them. And unless we reform those sectors in which we are encouraging, collaboration from countries like Israel, they are top of the notch in technology, I'm afraid nothing would come out of it at the end. Because rather than jumping at the table, Poonam, we have to sit at the table. This is our opportunity. We have opened India to the world. If the FTA comes along, this would be the 9th FTA in the last 5 years. That is unprecedented. We are going to open up India to zero duties, zero tariffs. The rest of the world is going to see India as a marketplace. Are we as competitive in our products? I'm afraid not at right now. We have to shape up, and we need serious reforms for doing that. So those are the misses, but the hits are for everyone to see.
Well, Sushant Sareen, there has been kind of a reaction that we've seen from the West coming in as far as this particular visit went of the Prime Minister. But both yesterday at the Knesset and today at the joint statement, Prime Minister Modi did sound out what really needs to be done in Gaza, that peace is priority. That's something that India has stood for. So this kind of criticism that comes in that, the Palestinian cause or Gazans have been isolated by India, have been sidelined by picking a side with Israel. Is that criticism sort of blunted with the kind of comments that have come in from the Prime Minister himself?
Listen, I don't think we should take that kind of criticism seriously. It means nothing. In international relations, it's not as though the people who are criticizing us don't look after their own interests. So my point is, what I think the message which Prime Minister Modi delivered is that we are not going to make our relations with Israel hostage to what happens or does not happen in Palestine. I think that's a very clear message, and that is exactly as it should be. Why should we, keep our all the progress we can make with better relations with Israel, why should that be hostage to the kind of stuff which is happening in that region? It's not as though and Anand is right. Uh, Suddenly, this leftist lobby around the world has turned the victim, which is Israel, into the perpetrator. And given a complete, pass to terrorist organizations like Hamas and some of these other fellows, who incidentally, people in India, most of these guys who are apologists of Hamas are also apologists of Pakistan and India. Most of these people never bother about the kind of anti-Hindu, anti-Indian rhetoric which comes from these radical Islamists of Hamas and other such groups. And suddenly they're telling us, and they're trying to make us into trying to shame us into saying that no, you should not have this relationship with Israel. But let me say one thing. I think the proof of the pudding will be in the eating of how much our policy has actually changed. And one metric I will look at is our voting record in the United Nations, which has been extremely scandalous, to say the least. Every time we need to take a firm stand on certain issues, we either abstain or go with the rest of the public. I don't think we should do that. I think we should be very clear about one, our interests. Of course, we should not do something morally egregious, but I think we should be very clear about how we are going to vote, and we should not be shy of voting. And finally, on the hits and misses which Anand is talking about, I think all those misses are things that we haven't done. And
Correct.
I think Anand mentioned that. Those are reforms that we need to bring in. Let's not look to other people to do reforms for us. But otherwise, we will have to do what Trump has forced upon us, or some of these other countries will force upon us. So either we reform ourselves, the world is not going to wait for us to reform. The world will pass us by if we don't reform.
Correct. Anand Ranganathan, you had a point to make before I wrap this up?
Just completely echoing whatever Sushant Paji said, but just to add, I think there is a message out here for the Indian Muslim community. This kind of following the usual trope that goes on in Iraq, Iran, or the Middle East, and that, oh, let's be anti-Israel, let's be anti-Jewish, let's be anti-Semitic. And we've seen the reaction since yesterday. They have to come up and realize that India needs to work with people for India's best interests. And when they talk about Israel committing a genocide on Muslims or perpetrating, crimes on Muslims, why are they silent when China interns 1.5 million Muslims in concentration camps and forcibly sterilizes them or feeds them pork and alcohol? Then there is complete silence out there. So let's not be hypocritical. Let us stand with India. And I say this with all respect to the Muslim community. Many of them do. But a lot of them are taken by this nonsense that Israel is a state that has butchered Muslims and, give free pass to people who are putting Muslims in concentration camps. Muslims have to learn. Let's support India.
Well, that's the message that we want the country to hear, and I have to leave it there. But I thank you both gentlemen for joining us here on The Right Stand and sharing your perspective.